Our reading this morning is an excerpt from Ode to Autumn by Pablo Neruda. Autumn is modest, like the woodcutters. It's hard to remove all the leaves from all the trees of all the countries. Spring sewed them together on the fly, and now one must allow them to fall as if they were yellow birds. It isn't easy. There's not enough time. It's difficult to be autumn, to turn the world off, sliding it as if it were a hoop of yellow things until all the colors are melted, light root bringing wine to grapes to meld with patience the irregular coin of the tree on the height, and then spilling it over disinterested, deserted streets. That's why autumn, comrade, potter, planet builder, electrician, wheat preserver, I give you my hand. I always wanted to be autumn's apprentice, to be a small relation of the laborious mechanic of the heights, to gallop across the earth, sharing gold. Tomorrow, autumn, I will help you pave the road with golden leaves. Good morning, friends. Some of you remember that one from August. I love this time of year. It's not the most original thing to say that one loves the crisp autumn air, the crunch of colorful leaves, the cider donuts, etc. But it wouldn't be a cliche if it wasn't true. But it's not just what is happening around us that makes this time of year feel so nice. It feels like we are at a time when the spirit of change and transformation really is all around us. Like we are on the cusp of moving from one part of the year to another. By the nature of orbital dynamics, the shortening of the daylight is happening at an alarming rate at the moment, with each daylight being several minutes shorter than the last. And those lengthening nights are getting colder. Every day I'm checking for that inevitable frost warning telling me that it's time to take my spider plants indoors. The air itself also tastes different, dry and fresh and peppery. Change truly is all around us, tangible with all our senses. But one of the curious things about being surrounded by so much change is that it leaves the choice up to us regarding how we choose to respond to it. Just as we cycle out our summer wardrobe and break open the bins with our sweaters and jackets and flannel, there's an invitation to reflection and renewal in ourselves and in our community, thinking about how we want to enter into this season. Coming up next week, of course, is Halloween, and it's no secret that the modern Halloween comes to us from a delightfully varied background of different holidays and traditions. And one of these various traditions is the Gaelic holiday of Samhain, traditionally celebrated to mark the end of the harvest season and the beginning of the winter season. This was a time to take stock of the bounties that this year's harvest had brought, to begin the process of preparing for the truly cold parts of the year. This involved processing the harvested crops for long-term storage, bringing out and mending winter coats and clothes that would soon be needed, and preparing one's house for the winter as well. If there had been any damage to the roof or the walls over the course of the year, then this was the time to address that before the cold winter winds made it absolutely necessary. Now, in pre-industrial houses, one of the most important physical parts of the home would be the hearth, a fireplace that would serve both as the kitchen cook fire as well as the main source of heat for the house, cleverly placed so that it would keep the home nice and cozy. And because of this importance, a house's hearth would never really be fully extinguished. The fire may burn down to nothing but glowing coals, but they would still provide heat. And with just a little bit of fuel and work, they would be brought back to a roaring fire if needed. And this continuous, never-ending nature of the hearth is something that has been recognized by cultures all over the world as spiritually significant, tying it closely to themes of identity and family. Often the definition of who was family was not strictly a matter of blood relation, but who shared your hearth, who gathered around to receive warmth from the same place as you. But a fireplace burning continuously for a full year inevitably would become messy, and so the need would eventually arise to fully extinguish the hearth and give it a proper clean. And this became part of Samhain as well. The hearth would be completely extinguished, and all of the ash and rubbish would be neatly swept out, and then the whole town would gather together and light a bonfire in the town center, with every household donating a little bit of wood or fuel for the fire. The fire would intentionally be started from friction, two sticks rubbing together, or from a spark, so to make sure that this is a brand new fire, not one lit from any previous. There would be music and dancing around the fire to celebrate the coming together. And at the end of the festivities, everyone would take a torch or a little piece of burning wood and use it to relight their hearth for the coming year. As a fun little detail, in some traditions, the fire would be carried home in a little gourd or a turnip, leading to the potential origin of the jack-o'-lantern. But this would mean that every single hearth in the town, every meal cooked, every body warmed through the cold winter would be heated from a single common source, from a single flame that was intentionally lit by the community and for the community. And more than that, there's an understood covenant that when this time of year comes around again, when the harvest ends and thoughts turn towards what needs to be done to prepare for the cold to come, that the cycle would be repeated, and the heart's connection to the broader community would be renewed. In this way of thinking, the most central and important part of our home is a shared point of connection. We are never fully disconnected from our communities. With the hearth's flame as a constant and unending tether back to a shared point of connection, every one of life's moments has a line drawn back to that point of origin. Our highest joys and our lowest sorrows are bathed in the light of a communal fire, a shared fire, reminding us both of the commitments that we have to those around us, past, present, and future, but also the commitments that those around us have towards us, past, present, and future. As we gather around our home's hearth, we gather around everyone's hearth. The fact that the fire is lit from a new spark, too, has symbolic meaning. It symbolizes that our connection to our neighbors is not simply one that's out of habit, convenience, or tradition. It's an intentional one that we take to renew, to grow, to not take for granted. Our connections are something that we choose to opt into, not just something that happens to us. There's just one problem with this whole beautiful act of relighting our hearths from a shared place, and that is, who still has a hearth? I'm lucky enough to have grown up in a few houses that had a wood-burning fireplace, something that instantly makes any holiday party cozy. But in a household of ex-Boy Scouts and generally handy outdoorsy people, the lighting of the fireplace was more of a skilled science and less of a ritual. And in an era where we are blessed with the presence of convenient stovetop cooking and central air heating, it's hard for me to claim that the warmth and food in my home comes from a particularly communal place. That's not to say that I'm complaining about modern convenience. I have nothing but praise for the superlative pleasures of good central air heating. But a part of me is still left with some hunger for more connection. In a post-COVID world, where many of us had to realize very quickly that the basic essentials of life can take place in a remarkably solitary way. It is technically optional to have any connection with anyone around us. But something about that just doesn't feel right. Something about not connecting with people around us just rubs us fundamentally the wrong way. That doesn't mean we have to be around people constantly, even with the people we love most in the world. I'm sure many of us enjoy a little bit of alone time, but it's a matter of knowing and feeling that we are connected with those around us, even when we are not present with each other in that moment. I believe that this sense is a fundamental part of the human condition, an empathetic desire that's baked deep into who we are. And when we are left in a state of disconnection, the loneliness that results from that solitude is deeply disorienting. In anthropological spaces, a leading theory that for humans being relatively defenseless, without claws or fangs to defend ourselves in the wild, this is actually an evolutionary benefit, as it forces humans to be in community and in mutual support, a system that allows us to be so much more than just the sum of our individual parts. The instinct to gather around the hearth, then, is not just something that we learned as towns and houses were built, but it's part of our makeup as human beings. But in a hearthless world, what communal act can we use to center our connection? I was thinking about this topic this summer when an odd news story came across my path. In August of this year, an anonymous flyer was sent out to various online community groups, calling all the people living in the German city of Karlsruhe to gather in a particular plaza on a particular Thursday at a given time to eat pudding with a fork. There was a little drawing clarifying that what they meant were one of those little single-serving pudding cups. The day came around, and over 200 people showed up to eat pudding with a fork. Other cities began organizing their own gatherings of people coming together. It quickly spread to every major German city, then internationally to Vienna, to Zurich, Seattle, New York, even Boston had one just last week, with thousands of people showing up to each of these events to eat pudding with a fork. See all that dry autumn air. You get those sticky pages. In case this sounds like a very strange thing to gather over, please let me reassure you that you are not alone in that impression. But there is not and has never been a specific explanation of why eating pudding was chosen as the thing to gather randomly and bond with strangers in public over. But in interviews with people who attended these events, the motivation was very clear. There is a delight to be found in gathering by the hundreds or in the thousands, standing in a place, grinning from the sheer absurdity of the situation. That act of gathering is meaningful in and of itself. Some speculated that the use of a fork, specifically as an unsuited tool for eating pudding, served the purpose of making the pudding eating take longer, forcing you to spend more time in community than you would with a highly efficient spoon or spatula. I tell you this story not to say that eating pudding with a fork is definitively the 21st century relighting of the hearth. Although, if any of you feel called to do so, let me know and we will absolutely make that happen. But thinking larger, I think the whole pudding with fork story has a strong message for us. Namely, that it doesn't necessarily matter what we have gathered in community to do. It's the fact that we gathered at all that nourishes our soul's need to be together. We gather on Sunday mornings with a very similar reason that we would around the Samhain bonfire: to see each other's faces or names in person or on the Zoom call, and to know that every single person has taken time to be together. We acknowledge that we bring very different stories and very different weeks into this space, and from that variety, we find shared experience in the act of gathering and creating this sacred space together. And why this time of year of all times? I began today by talking about the season as feeling on the cusp of something. The time when warm is slowly getting replaced by cold, when light is getting replaced by dark. The bountiful harvest time is ending, and we are settling in for the winter. If there was ever a time to reconnect and renew our bonds that hold us together, it is now. Let us not enter into winter with doubt in anyone's heart about the abundant love that we hold in our hearts for the people around us, our families, our neighbors, our First Parish community here, our towns, cities, states, countries, the world. And we can start that in the same way that we would start the Samhain festivities. First, we begin by cleaning out last year's hearth. It served us well, it warmed us in all the ways that we needed to be warmed, but just as ash and debris clogs up a well-loved fireplace, just so there may be things that keep us from renewing our connections, which we treasure. This is the time to think of the conversations you need to have in order to build those relationships on a steady and firm base. And also to have those conversations with ourselves. What changes and growth we wish to embrace in ourselves as we are swept up in this season of change. Next, we gather together. Just as building the communal bonfire involves every member of the village contributing some wood to the fire, so do we all bring a part of ourselves when we come together. But in the spirit of renewal and new beginnings, when we see each other arrive, we take the moment to recognize each other for who we are in that moment. We are not seeking to connect with versions of each other that exist in memory or as idealized fantasies, but our authentic selves as we are in that exact moment. And in the complex, spread-out world we live in today, this will not be a single gathering, but it is represented in all the chances we have this season to be present with one another. All the holidays, reunions, dinners, concerts, church services, rallies, family events that fill this time of year. Whether we gather to make meaning, gather in response to the urgent needs of the world around us, or gathering simply for the sake of gathering, the act of being together is already meaningful. And finally, we return home with a flame lit from the communal fire. As we leave this space today, we leave brightened and illuminated by each other's presence. Time spent in community does not just lift us up in the moment, but it lifts us up for days and weeks and months to come. As we bundle up against the cold and the dark, this light will continue to shine bright and warm. Come, let us be together. Come, let us relight the hearth.